Opposition announced a new candidate to challenge for the seat of Swan Hills. Drug and Alcohol Office launched television campaign against drinking during pregnancy. Thanks for calling in.
Also in the news, Bernard Chan steps down from the Antiquities Advisory Board after accusations of collusion. And CY Leung made a surprise visit to the Legislative Council.
This is the Evening News.
Good evening. The opposition leader Mark McGowan has announced pre-selection changes in the Swan Hills electorate, with the 29-year-old Ian Radish take over Dee Parry after her withdrawal as a nominated candidate. Mr Radish will be standing against the Liberal contender Frank Albin in next year's state election.
Former MP Jay Radish's brother Jan Radish has decided to join the nomination and pre-selection to contest the seat of Swan Hills for WA Labor in the state parliament. In a release statement, he said his priorities will be to ensure Swan Hills families have access to first-class healthcare, making sure that New Midland Hospital campus workers' wages and conditions do not decline, focus on the cost of living and improvement to the area's public transport.
I'm motivated, I'm enthusiastic, and I want to effect change for the people of Swan Hills, which I think Jay did in her 2 terms, and I think they've been missing out on for the past 4 years.
Former nominated candidate Dee Parry stressed that no pressure was given to her to stand down. She believes Jan's connection to the Valley and his sister, Jay's Radish, can help Labor win the seat of Swan Hills.
It's not about me personally, it's really to do with the best person who can move the Labor Party into a winning position.
The opposition leader has praised Ms Parry's hard work. Mark McGowan was confident that Jan Radish will be the candidate.
I have every faith that Ian will be the candidate for Swan Hills. He's a fine young man and he has a strong connection to the area, and of course both his grandfather and his sister have represented the area in one way or another over some years, and I'm sure he will be a good representative there as well.
Patryk, Lazarz, DHK News.
Mental Health Minister Helen Morton has announced a new television campaign urging pregnant women not to drink alcohol, as it has the potential to affect their unborn fetus. Side effects include brain damage, birth defects, the development of low IQ levels and many more. This promotion is part of the Think Again campaign and will be advertised for 6 weeks on statewide television, along with a targeted online advertisement. State political journalist Shibs has the details.
If you think that drinking a glass of wine or 2 is beneficial during pregnancy, think again, because new studies on the subject has proven to be inconclusive. The risk of harm to the baby is hard to predict, but the risk increases with greater alcohol consumption and can affect the development of the baby throughout the pregnancy. As a preventive measure, the Drug and Alcohol Office has launched a new campaign to promote the abstinence of alcohol during pregnancy as the safest choice, a first of its kind in Australia.
Not even 1 or 2 drinks every now and then?
We just don't know how much alcohol it takes to do damage. No amount has been proven to be safe. That's why I always say no alcohol is the safest choice.
According to Mental Health Minister Helen Morton, only 2 out of 3 women have heard about the potential ill effects of consuming alcohol during pregnancy, and this campaign is an opportunity for women across the state to understand the risks involved.
Research has shown that only about 2/3 of women in Australia really understand the problems associated, the potential problems associated with drinking alcohol while pregnant. And we want to make sure that every woman in Western Australia knows about this.
Professor Fiona Stanley adds that this campaign is also targeted at healthcare professionals, as many are unaware that guidelines have changed or that they existed.
Because not all health professionals are across the latest data. Some years ago, as Julie intimated, 2 drinks a day was acceptable in pregnancy. Now the data are very clear that we just don't know the level at which alcohol causes problems.
A mother who's part of the campaign hopes this movement will bust the myth that it's safe to consume alcohol when pregnant, and that communities will support and encourage mothers not to drink when carrying a baby.
A campaign like this is so important because it confirms that it's not okay, and it also tells the wider community that they can support that mother in her choice.
Shibs, DHK News.
Anti-Perth Waterfront development demonstrators gathered outside Parliament House expressing their concerns on traffic issues due to the constructions and further accused the state government's lack of public consult on the plan and wasting taxpayers' money. Minister for Planning John Day got booed by protesters when he made a statement during the rally.
A protest was held at Parliament House opposing the waterfront development project. More than 5,000 signatures opposing the initiative were presented at State Parliament. The project involves the construction of an adjacent bay to the city, as well as the significant development of public, commercial and residential areas. But one of the public's main concerns is the major traffic disruption the project will cause due to the closure of Riverside Drive. Leung, who organised the campaign, expressed his disappointment with the Barnett government as the level of public displeasure is significant and too obvious to ignore.
The problem with the waterfront is that they've taken this very special area, this very special land, and they've just put a whole lot of high-rise buildings there.
Labor member for Perth, John Hyde, believes the state government has failed to properly consult Western Australians regarding the position, as well as obtaining the proper heritage and environmental approvals. He also referred to the $440 million subsidy for private developers as a future drain on taxpayers.
There are a number of much better alternatives, a number of cheaper alternatives. This is a $500 million free payout to the private sector.
But despite people's concerns and opposition, the government doesn't seem prone to stop its plans of construction and redevelopment of Perth's waterfront. Alexandra, Mollo, DHK News.
In other demonstrations, the juvenile custodial officers have marched at Parliament House today as members were frustrated they're not protected by mandatory sentencing laws under the Barnett government. The Community and Public Sector Union Secretary Toni Walkington said juvenile custodial officers were assaulted whilst performing their duties in both Banksia Hill Detention Centre and the Rangeview Remand Centre.
Despite today's rainy weather, the outcry for protection from the juvenile custodial officers is loud and clear. Officers from the Banksia Hill Detention Centre and the Rangeview Remand Centre has voiced out their concerns as they suffered bodily harm when they are on duty. Officers who attended the demonstration are demanding to be protected by the mandatory sentencing laws, which applies to prison officers, police officers and ambulance officers. The Union Secretary Toni Walkington is concerned as the situation is getting worse.
Look, it certainly is a serious omission that the Parliament made when it omitted this group of workers, and we'll be hoping that this legislation does address all of the concerns around mandatory sentencing of for assaults against public officers.
The opposition warned that staffing problems need to be addressed, as the officers are exposed to greater danger in their line of duty due to budget cuts.
Their workplace is not safe. As I pointed out to the officers, on Saturday they were 12 staff short. Yesterday they were 6 staff short. The prison system is bursting at the seams.
The Corrective Services Minister Terry Redmond understands juvenile custodial officers' job is challenging. He said he needs to look at some advice about the implication of such change.
In principle, I support what's being put to me. I see a lot of the issues where youth custodial officers are presented with very challenging circumstances. I see some of the consequences of that. That's not for discussion today, but what is for discussion is the fact that they're in a very challenging environment, and I think the state government has a responsibility to do whatever it can to ensure that they have our support.
Raphael Lim, DHK News.
The next Chief Executive Leung has made a surprise visit to the Hong Kong Legislative Council during the lunch hour, as the Financial Committee is considering about Mr. Leung's plans on government reform. Mr. Leung stressed that his appearance is not to put pressure on legislators, and he also met the Democratic Party Vice Chairwoman Emily Lau, who chairs the committee. However, Albert Chan from People Power Party described Mr. Leung's appearance is meaningless, while Audrey Yu from Civic Party said Leung's appearance would be more significant if he was there to answer questions.
Bernard Chan has stepped down as the chairman of the Antiquities Advisory Board after he was accused of colluding with officials surrounding the grading of the former government headquarters West Wing in Central. DHK News understands that the Hong Kong government plans to demolish the 52-year-old building. Mr Chan left the position despite most board members asking him to stay. The Development Secretary, Kerry Lamb, expressed pity about Mr Chan's resignation, asking him to reconsider his decision.
Our main news again, the opposition leader Mark McGowan has announced pre-selection changes in the Swan Hills electorate after Dee Parry withdrew the pre-selection nomination. And that's how the world looks tonight.
Thanks for joining us and see you next week. Good evening.
Good night.